First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm extremely excited about the decision that the Citizens' Assembly have before you and the importance of this for our province, and I think all of us here tonight recognize that. I'm actually here tonight as an individual to speak to you about two concerns that I have specifically with regards to electoral reform in the province of Ontario. Firstly, I believe that very strongly that a new electoral system is required to truly engage young Ontarians in the political process. According to Elections Canada, youth between 18 and 24 in Ontario are actually 18 to 23% less likely to vote than the provincial average. But don't be mistaken, low youth turnout at the polls does not mean that young people aren't engaged in politics. They are very politically motivated, and they're likely to participate in other ways by forwarding emails regarding a certain cause or posting political views on blogs. We just haven't proven the value of their votes. The Canadian election study revealed that young people actually also use different criteria for voting than some of the older generations. They rely on the party as a whole to guide their voting choice, and they select local candidates for their stand on issues rather than on personal characteristics. We need to offer young people in Ontario an election system that allows them to express their political will through voting, and in a way that they will find accessible and accountable. Electoral reform that does not prove to young Ontarians that their votes really count will have failed to fairly represent this important group of voters. Secondly, I believe strongly that a new electoral system is required to increase the number of women representing us at Queen's Park. And particularly for young women, it is important to increase the number of women we elect so that they see people in politics who look like them and sound like them, to encourage them to get involved too. Thank you. And although women are 52% of the population, and I think you've heard that stat already, they're only currently 24% of the MPPs representing us today at Queen's Park, and this is by far the best we've ever achieved in Ontario. Canada overall, with its first past the post electoral system, currently ranks 47th in the world among democracies with regards to the representation of women. Not a very good record. We lag drastically behind all major Western democracies that use some form of proportional representation. Wales, for instance, has 50% women in its legislature, and in 1993, when New Zealand changed from a first-past-the-post system to a mixed-member proportional system, the number of women elected jumped from 21% to 29%. That's a very significant increase. The view is commonly held that until women reach a 30% threshold, we won't see any significant long-term change in women's representation. Electoral reform that does not offer a means to elect more women will have failed to address the concerns of half our population. So which system will address these issues? I should note I'm not an electoral reform expert. I'm actually in marketing. So firstly, it's clear that our first past the post system is not working for youth or women. So I'm just going to touch on some things that I think are important in this conversation. First of all, in proportional representation systems such as LIST, PR, and STV, voters vote for a party and their share of individual votes is translated into share of seats. In STV, voters rank the candidates regardless of party, and a mathematical formula determines how many votes a candidate needs to win in a region or riding to win. However, the votes are still counted on a district-by-district basis, with candidates with the least votes being eliminated. Therefore, a party could potentially win 5% of the popular vote, but not achieve enough votes in any one district to gain a single seat. Not completely proportional or representative in my view. Most importantly, though, from my perspective and from what I've seen from doing a lot of reading, is that neither in Ireland or Malta, where they actually use STV, have they managed to elect more women. I believe that the only systems that will support the needs that I've outlined for young people and women in Ontario is a mixed or parallel system such as MMP. In these systems, voters cast one vote for their local representative and one for their party of choice. The share of total votes the party gets determines the share of seats they get in the legislature. The seats are first filled by local candidates elected via the first past the post system, and any unfilled spots are filled with candidates from party lists. MMP is used in Germany, and as previously mentioned, it was also chosen by New Zealand in a referendum in 1993. The new Scottish Parliament and the Welsh Assembly were both elected by mixed systems in May 1999 and 2003, and it was also selected by the London Assembly in May 2000. Surely, all of these modern, major democracies haven't all got it wrong, have they? And most importantly, mixed systems have been proven to elect more women. Wales recently became the first jurisdiction to elect 50% women, ahead of Sweden with 45% and other Nordic countries which have long since had a great record for electing women. And I believe that by allowing voters to cast 2 votes, one for the local candidate and one for the party, it's potentially a more inclusive and attractive system to young people. MMP particularly allows young voters to feel that they are being heard. I strongly recommend that the Citizens' Assembly look closely at how other electoral systems in countries that have already implemented them and how they have both elected more women and could potentially attract more young people to the polls. Finally, in closing, as a young woman in Ontario, I feel very strongly that we need a new electoral system to, number 1, prove to young voters that their voices are being heard and that their views are being represented, and number 2, to prove to young women that political life is a viable career option for them by providing a critical mass of role models. Let's prove it to them on October 4th. Thank you.
I love asking questions. I have a question for you. You know, I'm a little worried here because you hear from a lot of people who talk about youth. Okay, I'm not really youth anymore. Okay, I'm a little older.
Me neither.
Yeah. Anyhow, I look at the education that I received going through high school on politics. Okay, it wasn't mandatory then that you take any course or you learned anything to do with politics. Now I believe our civics courses, which are mandatory, are only half credit. And some people's opinions say that that might do more for youth involvement. I want to know kind of how you feel about that and how you really feel that a system can get more youth to come out when they aren't educated about our current system or any other system to begin with.
Mm-hmm. It's a good question. I think both the civics course and there are also some great programs going on. I've done a lot of work on getting youth out to vote. And there's a great, I think it's called Student Vote, where they actually go out and do they're actually doing a mock citizens assembly. They go out and actually give students who are actually under the age of 18 the chance to vote, and they see a huge amount of interest. And I do think it's our collective responsibility to make sure that young people understand how important voting is and encourage them to do that. And I know I'm going to continue to do that myself.
Thank you very much.